Let me explain. At the end of the previous movie, Queenie joins Grindelwald and abandons the heroes, meaning she's now one of the few main characters that have a reason to exist in the story and actively take part in it. But in this movie, Queenie does absolutely nothing. She just stands around and you get some close-up shots of her looking worried, and that's literally it. She's here the whole movie, and she never does anything. And then she just goes back to the good guys, and she doesn't face any consequences for leaving them and joining the terrorists in the last movie. So what was the point of her arc? The whole reason why Queenie joined Grindelwald in the previous movie is because she wants to find a way to legally marry Jacob, who is a muggle. But in this movie, not only is that never mentioned again, but at the end of the movie, Queenie casually returns to the good guys with zero consequences, and then she marries Jacob anyway! You're telling me they could have just done that from the start? I ask again then, what was the point of her arc?
What was the reason? What was the reason? What was the reason? I just explained the reason. What was the reason?
Tina also has a solidified reason to exist in the story now because her sister Queenie joined Grindelwald at the end of the last movie. So you'd assume this movie would have her make a move to try and get her sister back at all costs. It makes perfect sense. That arc literally writes itself. She has the perfect motivation and has even more of a reason to try to find credence in Grindelwald. Great! She finally has a legitimate reason to be a main character. I'm super happy with that. Give her the place she deserves in the story. So imagine my surprise when I find out that Tina is not in this movie. At all. She's just not in it. She appears in it twice. She's in one shot halfway through the movie, and then she appears in the final scene for about 30 to 40 seconds. And the reason they give you for her not being a part of the story is that she's busy at work. I'm not kidding.
She's good.
Tina's been promoted. She's very, very busy. What I understand.
It's been heavily speculated that Catherine Watterson, who plays Tina, was essentially written out of the franchise as punishment for publicly speaking out against J.K. Rowling's anti-trans comments. And so they decided, for some reason, to write her out in the laziest way possible. Good job, Joanne. All of this effort to still be wrong. In the last movie, Newt's brother Theseus sees his fiancée get murdered right in front of him by Grindelwald. In cold blood, she literally disintegrated. Like she might as well have been killed by Thanos.
I'm gonna draw soon, guys. Just give me a second.
Arc in this movie would be about him grieving or attempting to get justice for her murder. You'd think there would be something related to the death of Lily Lestrange for him. Some storyline, some kind of emotional turmoil. That would make sense, right? But no. In this movie, Theseus is here, and he's part of the good guy squad trying to take down Grindelwald, but he's, like, not affected by anything. His character is left completely unchanged by the death of Lita. He's all smiles, and he's being witty, and he's even flirting with other women. He doesn't give a shit about Lita, apparently. In fact, I'm pretty sure he doesn't even mention her once in this whole movie. It's like she was never there. So, Theseus, who had a perfect reason to now go after Grindelwald to either get revenge or closure for the death of Lita, just doesn't have an arc in this movie at all, even though he had the potential for a great one being laid right in front of him. Newt's brother is just a bad character. He's mainly here to instigate exposition. Most of his lines are like, I'm guessing we're here for a reason, or I'm guessing this is why you brought me here, or I'm guessing this has something to do with Grindelwald, just so that other characters can explain the plot out loud for us.
I suppose you'd like to tell me what this is about, would you? I'm assuming that's why you come up against him.
Yes.
I take it we're here for a reason. So this proposal, I take it the chilling has something to do with it.
Oh, my brownies smell
Finger
good.
sandwiches.
Ugh, it's so lame. There's also no reason for Kama to be back in this franchise. Not only was the reason for his presence in the last movie an absolute mindfuck of overly convoluted storylines that ended up just wasting time and that, for the most part, made no sense. But Kama's story also came to a close in the last movie. He was here to kill Credence because he believed Credence was Corvus Lestrange. But then he found out the real Corvus Lestrange accidentally drowned as a baby. Okay, sure. So now his story is effectively over. I mean, technically, though, he should have died because he broke an unbreakable vow, but whatever. He has no reason to exist in this story. His thread is done. Except it's not, because in this movie, he shows up and he's just on the good guys team. Not only that, but Albus Dumbledore personally selected him to be part of his squad to move against Grindelwald.
Didn't he
And
try
I'm
to-
sorry, but huh?
Trying to draw her.
Makes no sense. The moment he shows up, the movie tries to pull an air of uncertainty where everybody wonders, can we trust Kama? Is he with us, or will he betray us? Which on paper could be a solid idea, I guess, but it just doesn't work in the way they execute it. Because that would work if we knew anything about Kama. Which we don't. We don't know anything about Kama as a person.
Shit, where's my white?
We don't have a reason to want him on the good guy team. We also have no reason to doubt his values within the conflict at hand because we don't know what his values are. Kama is a complete stranger to the audience. We literally have no reason to care about his presence or his allegiance. And then the movie tries to pull a switcheroo where you think he's betraying the heroes and he joins Grindelwald, but then he reappears in the third act and knocks out a couple bad guys. So
I don't
he
know
can
what that
go,
is.
Whoa! He was a good guy
Donate button?
all along.
Yeah, I don't have that.
Why did he do that? Stalling this whole time to then just turn around and flip-flop was
Oh, because
stupid.
well, I guess this
It
isn't
actually
Twitch.
held the
Because
heroes.
I know
It's
Twitch
not
does
like
that
getting
for like.
them an advantage on anyone. Just
Can you
slowed
have a
them
donate
down
button if you're
significantly. This one
a small
plotline
creator
really
on
bothered
Twitch?
me because the movie treats it like this big twist and revelation you should be thrilled about, but newsflash, it's the end of the movie and we still don't know anything about Kama. He barely spoke 3 words the whole movie. He has the least amount of lines out of everybody. Whether he's a good guy or not is not going to change the fact that I don't care about him.
You and your sister share an ancient bloodline. Shared. That's the only thing we shared.
I don't care, man. Jacob is a fun character that I'm pretty sure most people will view as the best character of this franchise, but he feels so forced in this movie. His arc ended perfectly in the first one, and now they always have to find a reason to keep him around, and he doesn't need to be here. And by now, you're probably noticing that I have not mentioned Newt once since I started talking about this movie. And that's because, despite being the protagonist for the 3rd time, Newt is still the least important character out of everybody. Even Kama is more relevant to this story than Newt is. And Kama is not even relevant to the story at all. Newt is just as useless as he was in the previous film, and he's still not doing much of anything. As it's often been said, he doesn't have anything to do with this story. There are no stakes for him, so he doesn't work as a protagonist because he has nothing to gain and nothing to lose from this entire mission. There is no tragedy, no conflict, no sense of urgency, so it's impossible to care about what he's doing because he doesn't matter. If Newt is taken out of this movie and the previous movie entirely, the events of this franchise will be the exact same. He does not matter. In fact, none of the characters really matter. Cassius is just here because he's Newt's brother, but he is also not concerned at all by the conflict at hand. Lally Hicks isn't even related to any of the characters here. She doesn't have a relationship with any of them, and we never see her build a relationship with any of them. And on top of everything, we never learn anything about her throughout this entire franchise. She never has an arc. She's just there, talking weird.
You know what they say, a book can take you around the world and back. All you have to do is open it. This site is a Drinkeller, Grindelwald, and his dark army of followers, who pose the single greatest threat to both your world and ours in 4 centuries.
Anything you can do to squash that will be greatly appreciated.
My pleasure. I shall welcome the challenge. Besides, I'll have Jacob with me.
Why is she talking like that? She does not matter. I literally just remembered she was in the previous movie. I thought this was her first one. This is her second movie in this franchise, and we still don't know the first thing about her. She's never been established. She just appears in scenes. Like I said earlier, Kama also has no reason to be here at all. He only crossed paths with the characters briefly in the last movie while he was in the middle of settling an issue that was not at all related to Gellert Grindelwald. Like, as far as he's concerned, all of those people are complete strangers on a suicide mission he has no reason to take part in. It's just, it makes no sense for him to now band together with them to take down Grindelwald. He has no motivations, no stakes, no reason, nothing. You could say his motivation was to take revenge on Grindelwald because Grindelwald killed Lita Lestrange in the last movie and Lita was Kama's sister. But in this movie, he literally comes face to face with Grindelwald and he goes, "Hey, you killed my sister." And Grindelwald is like, "Oh, okay, if you want I can just erase your memory and you won't remember that." And he just goes, "Yeah, okay." And then it's never mentioned again. I swear, he just erases his memory and then you never hear about it again. It's just like I said, no motivations, no stakes, no reason, nothing. He's only here because Joanne is forcing him to be. Jacob is the only one who would have a legitimate reason to move against Grindelwald because his girlfriend is currently with Grindelwald and he wants to get her back. Okay, that makes sense.
A person.
Here's my question. Why the fuck would Dumbledore want to throw Jacob in the middle of this? Of all the people Albus knows and trusts, why would he choose him to go to war? Jacob is a muggle. He doesn't have magical powers. He doesn't even want to get involved. Miss Higgs says that Dumbledore needs Jacob on his Suicide Squad because Jacob is a good person. Okay, but why? There's literally nothing he can do here. You want to know how I know that?
Model.
Because Jacob doesn't do anything. I witnessed it by watching the movie. I saw him as he did nothing. He's the comic relief character. Yes, I know. I love him for it. He's funny, and Dan Fogler is brilliant in this role. But being funny is not justification enough for a character to take such a large portion of a story. The only character that is legitimate to be front and center in the story of this franchise is the only one that isn't Dumbledore. But instead of being the one in the front lines doing stuff, he spends the whole movie giving orders to people. He just stands around looking fucking sexy because goddamn Jude Law, and he asks people to do things for him without ever explaining why they're doing
What does
these
WSG mean?
Assuming you're not otherwise engaged. And frankly, even if you are, I encourage you to attend tonight's candidates dinner. Take Mr. Kowalski. I'm quite certain there'll be an assassination attempt.
And that's it. He never explains who is targeted for an assassination, who would be carrying that assassination,
Oh, what's
why
good?
Jacob needs to be there. They just blindly
Didn't know
listen
that.
to him without question or without information. See what I mean? Like, it's impossible to care about the events taking place in this movie, because for most of it, we don't know what the characters are doing or why they're doing it. And the only character who knows all of that never explains any of it. I think what they're trying to pull off narratively is this idea that Dumbledore predicted every single one of the events that occurred during the movie, because he's just that smart, I guess. But it's not really possible, and it doesn't really make sense. Like, he gave Jacob a fake wand because he predicted that Lally Hicks would use magic to make him seem
since
magical
high school?
once the political dinner went south, which means he also predicted the political dinner would go south, but how? Why? He also made Newt's assistant build a copy of the suitcase and explicitly told her to not tell Newt about it because I guess he predicted that Newt would fail at his mission. So I guess he wanted her to then bring the real suitcase once he did. But then, how did he predict that Newt would fail at this exact moment. The timing was perfect. How could he predict that? How did he know she would be needed in this exact moment? That would mean that Albus predicted every single event of the movie down to the minute, and he anticipated every little hiccup the characters go through. And that would even insinuate that he predicted that Macias would get captured and that Newt would go rescue him in a German prison. It's just so stupid and weirdly far-fetched, and it still doesn't make the plan make sense. I genuinely believe that J.K. Rowling thought that if she made the plan super vague and nonsensical and secretive enough, people would just assume that they don't get it because it's super smart. But no, it's just lazy writing. None of the actions in this
Here,
movie
sharpen this
are
pencil real quick.
None of it adds up. None of it makes sense. This whole movie is just a bunch of nonsense. And I think JK knew it didn't make sense because when Newt starts explaining the plan to the other characters earlier in the movie, he says that their best chance to defeat Grindelwald is to confuse him.
Shit.
And to save our world, to save your world, Jacob, then our best hope is to confuse him.
Don't ask me what that means. It doesn't mean anything. He just says that, and it's never explained. But it feels like JK didn't really know what to do in the movie, and she just needed plot, and she just didn't know what to do. So she wrote a movie that is entirely incoherent, and hope people would just think nothing makes sense because it's meant to be confusing. And the thing is, I think one of the reasons this movie feels so weird is because it was entirely rewritten very quickly, like in a rush. The reason I say that is because the first details we ever got about the story of Fantastic Beasts 3 do not at all match the movie we actually got. In 2019, it was announced that Fantastic Beasts 3 was going to take place in Brazil. But if you've seen the movie, yeah, no, that's not true at all. The movie goes to New York a couple times, but mostly takes place in Germany. Not a single scene in this movie takes place in Brazil, which leads me to believe that most of the script was rewritten, especially because we do see the Brazilian Minister of Magic throughout the movie, but she barely has any lines and she doesn't do anything. So it seems like her entire part in the plot was cut. And same for Tina being written out. The way she's written out the story is such an afterthought that you can just tell it was a last-minute decision. The entire thing feels like it was written in 12 minutes by somebody who was late to work. Like, okay, let me break down the main thread of this movie for you. So like I previously mentioned, in Secrets of Dumbledore, we are dealing with a rigged election. Basically, it is time to elect the new leader of the wizarding world. You have a bunch of ministers of magic from around the world, and they're campaigning and doing rallies, and they're trying to get the people's approval, which doesn't make sense at all because this movie also teaches us that the leader of the wizarding world is not selected by a popular vote, but by a rare magical creature called a Chillin. This little Pokemon has the ability to see the future and recognize a leader with a pure heart. Well, that's convenient. So the way the wizarding world elects a new leader
Do I
is
have a
by
lavender?
kidnapping a Chillin, bringing it in front of the candidates, and wait for it to bow in front of the leader it deems the purest of hearts.
Another
I
skin
know
tone.
it sounds like I'm making this up, but I promise you it's true. You can look it up. So
Is that timer working?
now wants to become the leader of the wizarding
It
world.
didn't even. Come
Declare
on.
war on the Muggles. Important note, in the previous movie, Grindelwald says he wants to get rid of the Muggles because he had a vision of World War II and he was trying to prevent it. But in this movie, his motivation is completely dropped. It's never mentioned again, and now he says he wants to eradicate the Muggles and have the wizards dominate the world openly because he thinks it's their birthright. Anyway, so Grindelwald's plan to become leader of the wizards is to steal the Chillin before Election Day, kill it, see the future in its blood. It's never explained why he does that or what he even sees in the future, but whatever. And then reanimate it so that he can have a zombie Chillin he can control, and then bribe another elected official to bring the zombie Chillin on Election Day in order to get Grindelwald to win by making the Chillin choose him. I promise you, this is the real plot of the movie. That's literally what happened.
I panicked
But
and took them out of the
that
oven.
Grindelwald
But I
doesn't
don't
know
think
that there is a second Chillin.
they're not done.
To the one
Damn.
he killed. And that Chillin is in the possession of Newt Scamander. So Dumbledore recruits Newt again, along with a bunch of other randos, and he asks them to, well, actually, I don't know. It's never actually explained what Dumbledore's plan is, so something, Dumbledore tries to counter Grindelwald, something. And I will say...
Did I ever grab that? Do I have a lavender?
The Secret of Dumbledore.
No, I guess this is all the purples I have.
Yeah. We don't learn any of Dumbledore's secrets. You could say being in love with Grindelwald was one of the secrets, but we've already known that for a while. And Credence being a secret member of the Dumbledore family doesn't work either, because Albus says in the movie that he genuinely didn't know about Credence. And even funnier than that, this movie just forgot the twist that set it up. In Crimes of Grindelwald, Grindelwald reveals to Credence that his real name is Aurelius Dumbledore and that Albus is trying to destroy him. But the big detail is that he tells Credence that Albus Dumbledore is his brother. That was the big reveal. But I guess J.K. Rowling just kind of forgot about that, or she just changed her mind in between movies, because in this movie Credence is no longer Albus's brother but his nephew. Out of nowhere, he's revealed to be the secret son of Aberforth Dumbledore, Albus's older brother. And before you ask, no, this twist does not mean anything and does not go anywhere. God, this movie is all over the place. But I think the ultimate reason why these movies don't hit the same as the Harry Potter saga is because the Fantastic Beasts movies are lacking the most effective element given to the narrative structure of the previous franchise. And that element is mystery. One of the strongest elements in the storytelling of Harry Potter is that each and every single one of the stories take place at the center of a mystery. There's always an enigma to solve for the audience, and that's one of the big reasons why they're so engaging. Harry Potter 1. What is Dumbledore hiding inside of Hogwarts? Who is trying to steal it? And why? Harry Potter 2. Who is the heir of Salazar Slytherin? Who opened the Chamber of Secrets? Why? And who or what is attacking children in the school? Harry Potter 3. Who is Sirius Black? How did he escape from Azkaban? Where is he? And why is he coming after Harry? Harry Potter 4. Who put Harry's name in the Goblet of Fire? Who is trying to sabotage him during the Triwizard Tournament? And why? Harry Potter 5. What is the Department of Mysteries? What is Voldemort looking for in it? And why is Dumbledore not speaking to Harry? Harry Potter 6. Who is the Half-Blood Prince? Who has been sending dangerous gifts to the students? What happened to Dumbledore's hand? Who is Professor Slughorn, and why are his secrets so important to the fate of the world? Harry Potter 7. Who is R.A.B.? Where are the Horcruxes? And who sent a Patronus to guide Harry to the Sword of Gryffindor? Every single one of these stories have a solid point of intrigue to make the audience engaged in what's happening. You want to know what happens next because you want answers. You're engaged. There's an edge. The plot pulls some 180s on you. In Fantastic Beasts, though, it's literally the opposite. Nothing about the story of this movie makes you engaged. There's nothing to care about. There's nothing to surprise you. There's nothing to look forward to. At the beginning of the movie, the characters stand around in a room and tell you out loud exactly everything that's going to happen in the movie, and then it just happens. There is no twist, no surprise, no struggle, nothing. The entirety of the dialogue is blatantly
I
lazy
think
exposition.
making doing the
So
eyes really
basically,
makes
every
a piece
single
pop.
scene in this movie is just composed of people standing around and explaining what is currently happening out loud, and then they explain what they're going to do next, and then you watch them do it, and then they regroup, and they explain the plot again, and then they say what they're going to do next, and then you watch them do it, and so on and so on. It is the most redundant and boring plot structure ever. And the only reason the plot advances is because the characters are just so dumb and incompetent. Like, they will have villains with answers to their questions right in front of them, and you could just like jog very lightly to catch up to them, but they decide to just walk. Like, really? Do you guys not know how to run? They were like a couple steps ahead of you. You literally let them escape because you're stupid. You also have wands and magic that allow you to petrify people, you know, in case they try to run away from you. Anyways, it's not like the villains are compelling either way. Most of them don't have names, and even if they do, they don't have lines. Grindelwald's right-hand woman has been here for 2 movies, and we still don't know anything about her. I think she has a total of 4 lines in this movie, and I could not remember her name even if I had a gun to my head. And I gotta say, despite all the drama with Johnny Depp and people being upset that he lost the role of Grindelwald the way he did, I have to be honest here and say that Mads Mikkelsen is infinitely better in this role. I'm sorry, Mads Mikkelsen as Gellert Grindelwald was a brilliant casting choice. I think he was excellent. He's one of those actors who just own the screen. He has such a mystical presence. He's infinitely more threatening as Grindelwald than Johnny Depp ever was. Mostly because Johnny's take on the character looked particularly goofy. It was kind of impossible to take him seriously. But Mads Mikkelsen in this role is just great. The problem is that, well, Grindelwald in this movie, just like in the last one, doesn't do all that much. He's kind of a lame villain, no matter who plays it. And look, like I said, I'm all about criticizing the things I love. While I adore the Harry Potter saga, I also have no problem admitting that Lord Voldemort is just not that great of a villain. He's very one note and he seriously lacks layers. Long story short, he's just evil for the sake of being evil, and while it still works for what the story is, yeah, Voldemort is not the most compelling villain out there. But at least he's doing shit. He's like making moves, he's like doing things, he's in the front lines, he's fighting, he's like very active as a villain. Grindelwald is so bland that like the story needs to change out of nowhere to make itself interesting, because he just does not carry the story at all as an antagonist. And when I say the story changes randomly, I mean that. Out of nowhere, like halfway through the movie, the plot changes and it becomes about saving Credence, or Aurelius, because apparently he's dying now. We don't really know why he's dying, but he is. He was completely fine in the last movie, and he was completely fine in the first half of this movie, but now he's dying because he's too powerful, apparently. And I just want to point out how random Credence's arc has been this whole time. In the first movie, we find out that Credence is an Obscurus, a being that has repressed magic that kind of manifests into this extremely dangerous thing. Long story short, he is destined to die. He's super unstable, his powers are out of control, he's basically a ticking time bomb. There's nothing we can do for him, he is doomed. Then, at the end of the movie, Credence literally explodes.
Thank you.
He's attacked by the authorities and he becomes so unstable that he literally disintegrates himself, and he's supposed to be dead. That was the whole thing. Newt comes to try and save Credence, but he fails and Credence dies. End of the movie. Then, in the next movie, they realize they wanted Ezra Miller back, so Credence is just alive. And like, they never explain how he's alive. He just is. He explodes at the end of the last movie, and then this movie starts, and he's just there. He's just here, like nothing happened. Like you're just supposed to accept it. Then, in this movie, he's still here, and he's still in good health. There's nothing that ever suggested that his health was declining. He's fighting and stuff. He has a whole fight scene with Dumbledore that is probably like the one scene in the movie that made me feel a little bit alive. And then, like, he's just dying. And by the way, the same way the last movie never explains how he's still alive after disintegrating in the first movie, this movie never explains why he's dying. But yeah, at the end of the movie, he collapses, and then the story just forgets about him, so we don't actually know if he died or not. I mean, I'm guessing he did die, because if there is a Fantastic Beasts 4, which is very unlikely, there is no fucking way Ezra Miller is coming back. Anyways, this movie ends weirdly. Long story short, Grindelwald tricks everyone with the fake Chillin, and he becomes the great supreme leader of the wizards, and literally, the second he is chosen as leader, he immediately declares war on the Muggles. It's like his first sentence.
Our war with the Muggles begins today!
Quick reminder that all these people are supposed to believe he is pure of heart, so they should be pretty confused right now, but whatever. Newt and the Suicide Squad show up immediately after, and they expose him for being a fraud, and things go south very quickly. But this is where the ending gets really stupid. Because once again, this movie decides to resolve things by breaking its own rules. After being exposed as a fraud by the Suicide Squad, Grindelwald snaps and tries to murder Credence in front of everybody. Albus immediately intervenes and he casts a spell to counter Grindelwald. Now already, that should not be possible. Albus should not be able to fight off Grindelwald's spell. The Blood Pact would instantly kill him. But, okay, I'll let it slide. Just for that time, I'll let it slide. You're being stupid. But what I'm not going to let slide is the fact that instead of killing him, countering Grindelwald's spell actually destroys the Blood Pact. It undoes it! Which... what? It makes absolutely no sense. You're telling me that the magical Blood Pact that's impossible to break was undone by doing the exact thing it was created to forbid? Are you kidding me? And it's so funny because the movie itself clearly doesn't have an explanation for it. It's just as vague and nonsensical as the rest of the movie.
I thought you couldn't move against one another.
I did. He sought to kill, I sought to protect. Our spells met. It's called fate.
What was the reason?
Bro, shut the fuck up. But anyways, so the pact is now broken, which means Dumbledore and Grindelwald can now fight each other. And then we proceed with the very first one-on-one fight between the two most powerful wizards known to the world. Dumbledore versus Grindelwald.
I should go take a shower.
This has to be the most
Bye.
boring fight in the